Hey guys, Shanna Cramer here with Creatively Uncorked. It is now May of 2021 and we are focusing on watercolor a little bit more this month. This is our third painting in May and it's getting a little bit more challenging. This is the watercolor version of Spring Bridge. Hey guys, I hope you have your paper out and sketched. If you got your box from Creatively Uncorked, you would have gotten Arches cold press 140-pound paper, which is very good for washes. The challenge with this painting today is we are going to do a full painting wash. Our background is all going to be made up of a wash. Okay, so there's going to be a significant dry time after that. You can either wait, take a break, you can come back and blow dry. I'm pre-recording this because dry time is probably going to be, if you let it dry naturally, about a half an hour. So I'm just going to hit pause, let it dry, and I'll come back and continue recording. As always, you can ask questions on our Facebook page. I'm happy to do one-on-one reviews with you if you'd prefer. So just let me know. All right, so what we've done here is these are the paints that we would have sent out to you. And if you're not getting your supplies from us, you can use any watercolor paints you like. This is just a starter set. This is a Prang watercolor set, 16 colors, and this is student graded paint. So if you want to upgrade or get a different style of paint, you can. This is very good quality paint for the price range. And as long as you're working on this really nice paper, you shouldn't have any trouble with it. If you're going to go, if you're purchasing your own supplies and you're buying whatever paper you can find, I'll just give you a little bit of a warning right now that Canson papers are not going to hold up to a full page wash. You can paint little things on a Canson paper, but you can't layer it too much and you can't do a full wash. Too much water on that paper will ruin it. And if it says multimedia paper instead of watercolor paper, also not going to work. This is the only paper I recommend for this, and it's Arches 140-pound cold press. A little more on the expensive side, totally worth it. All right, so I know this is an intermediate painting, considered to be an intermediate painting. A wash is a slightly more advanced technique. So if you do this painting and you're struggling with it and finding it doesn't look how you want it to, step back, relax, don't worry about it. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So the brushes that you got in your kits, this number 14, and you also got a smaller brush, probably a different color handle, but roughly about a size 6. So these are the two brushes that you should have on hand. If you have a brush larger than this, that's even better for a wash, but I'll start with what I have here for now. One supply that we did not send out to you, but I've been using lately with watercolors, is a sponge. This is just a standard kitchen sponge. It's probably better if you don't get the scrub side to it, but that's what I had on hand. So one easy way to do a full page wash, if you're working with a smaller paintbrush like this, is to use a sponge. Okay, my colors are already activated because I sprayed those about 10 minutes ago, and I just spray those with a mister bottle. You can, of course, always just activate your paints one at a time by dipping your brush in water and adding water to your paints. That works as well. So my paints are activated, they're starting to work, and now I've got my kitchen sponge, dunking that in my big cup of water, squeezing most of that water back out again, and then I'm just going to the paper. A cleaner sponge will leave less marks, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so I did have to add a little more water to the sponge. Okay, so it is a pretty damp sponge. There. And I'll show you this paper. There, you can see that paper is pretty wet and it's pretty evenly wet. Okay, it's nice and shiny right now. So now is the time that I want to start dropping in color for a full wash. And this full wash is going to essentially tint my background so it's leaning toward the colors that I want to see. First color I'm going to use, take your larger brush, take a little bit of turquoise, and I'm taking color from the pan and bringing it to the mixing well. Dropping in some scribbles. So this is going to be my blue sky. I don't want it to be even. Just kind of mess it up there a little. And as I come down a little further, I do want this turquoise kind of behind every color. Not kind of, I guess I do want it behind every color. So I'll just go ahead and give some good little swishes in there. This is going to be my unifying color, my color that ties it all together. Occasionally when we do some of the acrylic paintings, we tone the canvas. So we might start out with an orange canvas or a blue canvas or something like that. This is similar to that, just the watercolor version. Okay, so I've got that little bit of turquoise everywhere. Before I go too strong on that, I'm taking a little bit of green now. And with that little bit of green, I'll come in to the tops of where my bushes are. This is the bright spring green now. Might even be a little behind the bridge there. Don't leave gaps. A little bit over on the right side. So here's going to be the bushes. Just scribble it in there and you're going to be moving quickly, okay? Don't slow down. All right, well, I have that little bit of green. I'll just come down here to the grassy areas, leaving that little swatch there because that's my stream, and the stream is going to be blue. All right, take that green right around the path, touch more green. I'll go over to the right side of that. And again, continue to move quickly. You have to get this done before your paper dries. All right, not too much green down in here. Okay, so I know my trees aren't actually there yet, but I know where they're going to be. I drew in some trunks. So now I'm just lightly dotting in some of that same green. And this is the light green, the yellow green. And this is a spring scene, so it's a nice spring color. And I'll just drop some of that color in right around where those trees are going to go. So the reason I'm doing this right now is because my background paper is all wet, and any color that I add to this paper right now is going to fade and fuzz out, and it's going to look like a soft color change off in the distance. So that's perfect for these distant trees. I'll come back and bring, nearby branches and nearby trees over it later. But for right now, I'm just doing the off in the distance, the way in the background. Okay, so now it looks like we've got a bit of a choppy, cloudy sky. We've got a few leaves in front of that. I don't want to go overboard. So I'll stop with the leaves. How am I doing in the bushes here? The bushes are actually going to get quite a bit darker than this, and I might go ahead and start that now. Yep, I think I will. Okay, so for the bushes, I'll take a little tiny bit of purple, maybe even this reddish purple. Not that much. There, mixing it with a little bit of that light green. And I'll be dotting this in right at the lower edges of those bushes. Okay, a little bit more green, a little bit more purple. Purple and green, you might think it's turning into a muddy color, but I think I'm actually just making dark green. So, and I think that's going to start to bloom. My paper is, let's see how dry it is. Okay, so it's dry to the point that it's no longer shiny. This paper is still very wet, but it's not shiny anymore, so it's starting to dry. So at this point, I have to be careful about adding colors. Any colors that I add now have to be stronger than what I'm adding it into. They have to have less water. So here's what I'm doing. I'm picking up that green purple mixture and then holding my brush down to the sponge. So now that sponge is soaking up the extra water and leaving most of the paint behind. Let's see how it looks now. Okay, that's not bad. All right, so that's a little better there. So here is the bank on the other side of that bridge. Just darken that slightly. And this is not the final layer. Like I said, this is just the first layer. All right, so we will be going over this. That's a fact. And let's let it go for now. I think I've got some okay colors in there. Do I want to put some on the bridge? Maybe. Yeah, I guess I do. What the heck? And I guess that bridge would kind of go right behind there too. Right behind that first railing. I don't want to go overboard. I want to keep that one kind of light. I want this to blend down a little bit. It shouldn't be so defined. There, okay, stop. All right, I'm now at the point that if I continue to work on this painting, it'll get worse instead of better. So just to show you exactly where we're at right now. So this is my first layer. I did a wash, completely covered the paint with water using a regular household sponge, and then immediately started dropping in color. So the first color was turquoise, dropped in a few splashes up in the sky and all the way down to the rest of the painting, all the way over the whole thing. Then came back with some green, green over the bushes, green in the leaves, green on the grass. And then I mixed a purple and green and did this kind of brownish color, just a little bit on the bridge and on those bushes in the background. And now is the time to let it dry. So I will pause this, blow dry it. You can pause your video and come back when you are ready to do the next step. I'll see you soon. All right, guys, welcome back. We're at the end of our break. I hope you took a chance to pause and dry your painting. I certainly did, and while I was gone, my four-legged studio assistant came by and put her stamp of approval all over everything. So you know what that means? That means this is going to be a good painting. I reapproves. So we'll just go right on ahead to the next layer. And at this point, we've got our background. Look at all the cat hair. Anyway. So the next thing we're going to be adding will be the trees. We'll kind of work our way from top down now. And this is layer 2. Layer 3 will be the bridge, possibly some other details. So right now I want to add, we have tree trunks to add, but before we add any tree trunks, I want to add the leaves. Let's take a look at this original for just a second. And you can see the small little details of the leaves, and leaves are growing off the trees in groupings. So let's just say, take a look at this group. Wait, can you even see that? Probably not. Okay, so take a look just above the bridge. You see that big group of leaves? So you can see that it's got green on top, it's got a little purple on the bottom, and that's because the light is coming from way high left. Okay? Or way off over, somewhere over there. The sun is coming from over there. So our shadows are coming this way, all the shadows, and then the light, the back sides of the leaves are going to be more well lit than the side we're looking at. The side we're looking at is going to be in shadow, and the shadow color we're using here is going to be purple, just because I like green and purple together. So that's where we're at. In this original, you can see, let's take a look one more time. We've got some tree trunks kind of going everywhere through there. We've got some tree trunks off in the distance, way in the back, that are very faint. So we'll add those next, and then kind of work from the back forward. So we'll add a couple of those tree trunks, and then come back and add some leaf groupings. All right, enough talk. Let's get on with it. All right. Back to my big brush again. Swish that in the water. And I have a little bit of a, I'll call it brown, but it's actually that purple and green mixed up. So I'm adding a good amount of water to it, so it's pretty thin. And then kind of randomly, I'll add a few tree trunks that are just going to be kind of off in the back. These are very faint. You can cover your bushes if you want to. It's really not a big deal. Okay, a little more water, a little more paint. These are, like I said, way off in the background, so we really don't need to worry about them too much. We'll be doing some bigger tree trunks later on that are going to show up quite a bit more. So those are my off in the distant trees. Cleaning that brush. And because it's spring, we have the light coming back to front. On the top left side of the leaf groupings are going to be kind of a bright spring green. So I'm going back to this yellow-green again, just putting a little bit of it out, and scooch this in so you can see it a little. All right, so now I have my trees. I'll start just kind of dabbing in a few leaf groupings. And I like to do the leaves early on because that way I have the option of either putting the tree trunks before or after the branches instead of all before. Like if you put all the tree trunks in now, you're not going to be able to cover them. Just kind of dot, 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 dot. If you want to switch to a small brush, you can. I'm just going to go ahead and add some of my leaf groupings here real quick with the larger brush. While that's still wet, taking a little touch of this purple, and all I did was take my red violet, which you probably can't see right now, can you? Okay, so this red violet, and I added that to my green brown color over here. And I'm just dropping in just a little tiny bit onto the lower edges of my leaf groupings. Now my leaves are all still wet, okay? I just put that paint down, so it's going to blend. Should blend beautifully. You know, while I'm at it, why don't I take some of that bright yellow too? Now remember, when you're mixing your, when you're adding color to existing color, your added color has to be thicker, less water, than your existing color. You can add cream to coffee. You can add cream or milk to tea or coffee, but not the other way around. So it has to be thicker. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about with the tea and the coffee, take a look back into the videos and you'll find a video that's called Watercolor 101, and I go into pretty good detail on that, on all of this there. And just for future reference, I do recommend watching that video first before diving into any of these watercolor lessons because it's going to make a huge difference. So I'm just doing a couple of, just a handful of groupings at a time because when I'm dropping in my extra colors, my shadows and my highlights, I want to do that while this paint is wet. So only do a few at a time so it doesn't have a chance to dry. Coming back with the purple. Dropping that in on some of the lower leaves. Cleaning the brush, picking up some yellow. There we are. Okay, so there's a nice little leaf grouping. Moving on, so cleaning the brush again and then going back and coming up with some more green. And I think this will probably be the last one. The last few groupings. A couple of dabs here and there for some leaf shapes, some little scribbles for some scribble shapes. I'm sure you know this by now, but scribbling is my favorite way to paint, and scribble shapes are my favorite. A little bit of purple in that green for our shadows. Shadows on the bottom right. Just a little dot, dot, dash, 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 dot. Doot, 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 doot. Okay, and clean the brush again, and then I'll come back and I'm just drying the water out of it and then picking up that yellow and dropping the yellow onto the tops of those leaves. Well, isn't that lovely? Now we've got quite a variety of leaves in the sky. Let's not forget our bushes. Okay, so those are going to be, I'll take a little more green. We'll go with that bright green again. I'm going to add a few other colors to it, but we'll start with the bright green base. And we're mixing this up like coffee. So coming in here to where the bushes are, starting on the left side, scribble it on in, dash and dot. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of this purple. It's a little bit thick, but that's okay, and I'll just kind of drop some in toward the bottom of those bushes. And this is going to be a little bit brighter and a little bit happier. And I do want to bring that up under the bridge. Okay, there we are. Another thing we can do with this is add even maybe a touch of like a reddish orange. What do you think of that? Reddish orange. Drop it in a little bit above the, kind of between the purple and the green. It's a nice variation, don't you think? If you want a little more color variation over here, you can either go back to the original turquoise or maybe a slightly different shade of green. Maybe this green blue, maybe green blue and turquoise, what the heck? And just kind of dotting that around. Remember, it's got to be thicker than the paint you're putting it in. So you're mixing this up at, we have coffee strength that we put on our background, right? So now we are going to be using at least milk strength paint to be dropping into it. Just little dots here and there. Purple bushes, I kind of like how that looks. Maybe a touch more orange, I don't know. Maybe that's enough. That is enough of that orange. All right. Well, a couple of little splatters of water there just to help colors mingle around and be happy. And then I'll move along to the right side of the bridge and just do that exact same thing. So I'm picking up my light green and yeah, I think I'll maybe make sure that gets behind that. There we are. So this whole area here is actually the bushes. You can see through that bridge. So I just want to make sure I have a little bit of green behind there as well. Okay, now this is, once again, this is going to be probably coffee strength. All right, there's my green. Then I'll come in and take a little purple, kind of drop that in the bottom. And this is going to blend and make a nice bottom of the bush type of a shadow. This is the same purple we're using for our shadows for all of the leaves. And while I have that, I'm just going to bring it on down, maybe even a little of that blue. Bring it down to the shoreline. That seems kind of dark right now. Maybe I don't want it that dark. Well, if you don't want it that dark, then you rinse your brush, dry your brush on the sponge, so you have a thirsty brush. Dragging that along the shoreline slowly, and there it goes, lifting up some paint. You have to do this while the paint is wet. Okay, same thing. Clean the brush. There. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. I've got it kind of straight lines in there now, so let's scribble it up. Maybe go back to some more of that green. And I'm just scribbling on that area where I just dragged the color back off again, because I want it to have some variety. Okay, I'm picking up that dark blue purple now, adding some variety, just dot dot here and there. You could just, you know, flick some color. Be careful for your water. And let's try some of that orange. Gotta be thicker than what you're putting it into. Okay. Yeah, I guess you just put it where you want it, or you can splatter it. Splatters aren't very controlled, which does give it a nice look. Okay, comparing this side to this side, I think I do want this to be a little bit darker. Just a touch. So I'm bringing in a thicker blue and just scribbling along the shoreline. Okay, my paper's still pretty wet, so this will feather out and fade out. Your sponge is so wet it can't soak up water. Squeeze it out. All right, now I'm going to wait patiently because that's what I'm best at. Okay, maybe not. So we have a couple of other things that we could be adding to this right now. The bushes are really, really pretty wet, so we want to leave that alone. We've got tree trunks that we can come back in and add. We've got tree shadows that we can add. We've got our river. My river full of orange. I'm just gonna soak up some of that orange off of there. I know you're wondering how to get rid of cat footprints. So am I. So here's what I'm going to try. Rinsing out my brush, dragging most of the water back off the brush again, and I'm just dampening that area of footprint. Get a paper towel. I'm just waiting a minute on that. Soaking it in, okay? And then I'm coming back in and just kind of swooping that up. Swooping it up, soaking it up. So anyway, most of the cat footprint is now gone. This will leave marks, but this isn't the last layer on that path anyway. We're gonna add a darker layer, something a little bit more gray, something a little muddled and walked on after that dries. So let's do those trees. Yes. Okay, let's switch to the small brush. All right, so I'm going back to my brown that I've been using all along, which is the yellow-green combined with the red-violet. A little more purple on there. Why am I using these two colors instead of the brown that's right in front of me? Well, I like the color better. It's a little more vibrant, it's a little more fun, it's a little more playful. Brown is just brown. So this is green and purple. So there. So now when I come back up here to do some tree trunks, I'll just nose down. So I'm holding this flat, so it's pretty flat on the paper, and just dragging it across. And keep in mind when it touches these bushes, it'll spread out. So be careful there. Shrink that up and get it out of the way. You guys all have a reference photo, right? If not, you can find that online. It'll be on the same page where you found this, this painting. CreativeelyUncorked.com/spring-bridge. That should be the right page. All right, I'm going overboard on the branches here. Just keep going. It's really easy to branch a tree to death because the branches are pretty fun. All right, I also want to make sure that I'm not putting too many branches and too many tree trunks in front of the leaves. So I'm going to try and put some of these behind. Okay, I'll add a few more back here. And this is the reason I don't like to draw in my tree trunks ahead of time. I want to figure out later where I want to put them. I want the freedom to change my mind. So I'm trying to get that tree trunk behind some of those branches there. And if we need to, we can come back and brighten up some of those leaves. That's not a big deal. For now, I'm just wanting to focus on the trees, though. Might need a little more brown than this. All right. Got my brown bleeding down in there. I'm just going to let that one go. Well, I don't mind that too terribly. While we have the color still wet, I'm going to take a touch more purple. Maybe even the other purple, maybe even the regular purple. Just kind of dot it in on some of those wet tree trunks. Give it some variety. See, this is the fun of watercolor. You get to decide what color you want it, and you can just make it that color. You add all the fun and variety that you want to. If you like purple and brown, you make purple and brown. If you like purple and orange, you make purple and orange. Who says trees have to be green anyway? Well, there we're getting some fun variety. Don't want to go too overboard, but I kind of do. Okay, I'll leave that, let it dry, and then move down a little bit further on the painting to, let's get to that water. Should we do water first or the path? Let's do water. Okay, so with the water, right down under those bushes, so we've already kind of got the general shape of the bank. And so we'll try a little bit of purple, black. We've already kind of got that in there, so we're going to have to make sure we have that in our reflection. The reflection is whatever you see right above it, reflected down into it. Just the colors. We're not going to go overboard with detail because this is a flowing river. It won't have detail. It'll just have the colors. Okay, so I'm going to need a little purple. Not very much. Get my sponge back there. All right, so I'm just going to do a few. Oh, that looks a little brown. Let's go with a little more purple. Not too thick. This is a pretty watery paint in here. You don't need a lot to tell the story of a shoreline. We just want to reflect a similar color and then make sure it is in the shape of a reflection. So I'm holding my brush very horizontal and very flat compared to the paper and just dragging right across horizontally. Always keep your lines horizontal here. Okay, maybe a touch over here, but not too much. Maybe a touch more. Again, not too much. Okay, that was overboard. Oh well. Let's see, do I want a touch of maybe a little bit of green? So I'll just take this green again and go near the purple. I'll probably touch a purple in a few spots. What the heck? Yes, I'm only doing one side of the river right now. I'll come back and get the left side later. Okay, we've got purple and green blending nicely. Now let's go back and pick up that blue, which was actually the turquoise blue, if you remember, from way back at the beginning, the first blue that we used. So I'm just taking a thin, small amounts of it on my small brush and coming back into the water. That is a little too purple. Let's go more turquoise. I'm just trying to find a clean spot on my wells here. Okay. So sticking close to the shoreline and doing horizontal lines. And if you lightly touch some of the colors that are there now, you are going to get the colors to blend together, which makes for beautiful rivers. And because you don't want white going off your edge, you have to kind of fill that in a little with whatever you want, as long as it's not white. It can be super, super light. It's just not white. There. Good job, us. Does it need to be darker anywhere? I think my reflection right here would be slightly darker. Scribble some of that purple into the bushes. Okay. And gonna stop with that, move over here to the left side, and this time I think I'll start with that blue because the river is much, much thinner over here. So I'm just going to add a couple of dashes, making sure I'm getting right up to the edge, leave some blank white space. Sun's reflecting off of there. Okay, and then I'll take a little bit of purple, drop it in a couple spots. Bit of green, drop it in a couple spots. Yeah, don't want to go overboard. Do leave white. All right, so there is almost all of layer 2. We can add a few grass shapes. Let's just take a look up the original again. So yeah, I think I'll leave the grass alone. The next thing that we're really going to add to it will be the tree shadows. So we don't need to worry about the grass right now. The bridge will be last. So let's try. I guess we're at the part where we need to fill in this, this path. So that path is kind of a gray, and your instructions are going to tell you to use black, but I think we can make a gray with some other colors. Let's take a look at, oops, also switching back to the big brush. Okay, so let's take a look at that purple. Let's add a dot of yellow. How's that look for gray? A little more yellow. I think it's okay. Yeah, okay. I guess I better shrink up the original so you can see what I'm mixing here. All right, so I have this like yellowy purple. And did you see that? I just went and grabbed a different color and started blending it right in. So I'll get my yellow-purple mix around the edges. Again, you're blending colors, so you have to do this quickly. Okay, rough up the edges so you don't get weird lines, and start adding some fun colors. So here's some of that blue. Never feel like you have to color in every space. Go ahead and leave gaps. But that's nice. That's a nice little variety of color on our path there. Okay, I have a little bit lighter color. The bridge is already painted, so we don't have to add much for color to it, but I'll just dull it down and get it to blend in with my path. Don't go over it too much, because what happens is when you go over this too much right now, after this paint is dry, it will lift that color back up. So you can go over it like once, maybe twice, but that's it, stop. After that, all you're doing is dropping color into it, but not putting brush strokes over it. Okay, so we've got a nice path. We have some shadows to add and some bridges. At this point, the whole painting is wet again, so this is the end of layer 2. We are going to take another dry break, let this dry completely, and then come back and add layer 3. So I'm going to pause and blow dry, and meet you back here in a minute. All right, here we go, last leg of this painting. We are now about to start layer 3, which is going to include the shadows and the bridge. Which would you like to do first? The bridge? Okay, let's do it. All right, so we are going to go back to our nice brown that we mixed. Probably mix up a little bit more. And yes, I have the small brush now because that bridge is small. Okay, so let's start with a little, yeah, we could do some of that light green. Yeah, we could do some of that reddish purple. Yeah, we could do some more of that light green. Now that is the color that we've been working with all along. However, I don't want it to blend in with everything we've been working with all along. I want it to be a little bit bolder. So here's a chance for us to add actual brown. Or should we? Maybe purple. Well, it's pretty purple now. Yeah, I don't hate it though. All right, let's get on with it. So in this color, yeah, you can use brown if you want to use brown. Otherwise, I have the brown that we've been using, which is the light green and the red purple. And I just added a touch of this dark violet. Alrighty. So picking up that color, which come to think of it is now looking a little muddy. Darn it. Yeah, I don't really like that brown though. Okay, muddy or not, I'm using it anyway. So I'll just follow the rainbow. Okay, and that is a bit heavy and dark, so I'm going on to the bridge itself now with a damp brush and just scribbling out that edge because I don't want that harsh edge on my bridge. Same here, scribble it out. Okay, so the top line should be a straight line of each of these pairs. The top line should be a straight line. The bottom line should have a fuzzy edge. Top line should be a straight line. Bottom should have a fuzzy edge, and that fuzzy edge is on the top of the bridge, okay? Not out in the water. Okay, back to our purple again, and we'll fill in those little cross zigzags. Probably just gonna do it nice and simple. Maybe a little more complicated. Okay, you can do a tap, tap. Nope, don't like it. Not gonna do that. Nope, 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 nope. Let's go ahead and take another try on this bridge. Little brush, brown paint, and I'm just adding those zigzags. Just nicely adding them, just one little brush stroke at a time. And these are just little zigzags or little V's, however you want to look at it. Just bridge support. I can talk. All right, I'm gonna let that be. Let those colors dry out a little bit before deciding if I need to add any more. Okay, I'm gonna add to this railing one more time. A little bit darker. Okay, moving on. Now our last step is the shadows. If you take a look up here at the original, you can see that we've got tree shadows kind of coming all across here, branch shadows all over in this area. We're going to have a bridge shadow up there, bridge shadow across on the top of the bridge, and some of these trees are going to have shadows across some of the bushes. Here's the trick. This is called layering. It's called glazing, which is essentially layering. What we're going to do is we're going to mix a glaze color, a shadow color, which will be a blue or a purpley blue, a cool color in this case. And we've got to keep an eye on our shadows coming this way. And then we're just going to go ahead and add in all of our shadows. This is the final detail, and this is what's going to bring this whole piece together. So let's see. You might want to get yourself some fresh water for this. Might not be necessary, but it can't hurt. And I'm going to pick up some blue, thin it out. You know, maybe I'll just keep it only that blue instead of messing around with the purple. I kind of like this blue the way it is. Thinning it out some more. This we want to weaken it down to a T strength at best. All right, so now this is going to be my shadow color. I'll just pick some up on the brush. And where am I going to place my first shadow? I think I'm actually going to start on the right side, which I normally don't do, just to avoid sticking my hand in wet paint, but I think today I will. So got a little bit of shadows right down there on the trees, kind of a little bit across the bush, and then shadow comes off this way. All right, next tree. A little bit down the trunk. And then just a little dash of it in the water. Don't go overboard on the shadows in the water. You don't want to detract too much from your water, so just let that one go a little. All right, next tree, I'll just do a little bit of blue, and this is kind of on this side. So on our side and on the right. And where is this shadow going? It's hard to tell. It's going to be running into the water, running into that bridge. Okay, we'll get the bridge shadow, but we'll wait for the bridge to dry. Another little tree trunk. Now when I'm doing this, I'm just lightly touching the tree and then stopping. Okay, there's no, you don't want to keep going over it and over it. You're going to lift the color below it, which is not the intended result. You might need to make this blue a little stronger. Okay, a little more blue down this tree. So that one's got a little branch that veers off. And this is where we start getting some little leaves in here as well. Be kind of careful with the leaves. You don't want those big globs of blue on your leaves. Again with the clusters, leaf clusters. So I'm just tap, 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 doing this exactly like I did with the branches or with the leaves. The only difference is, well, actually there's no difference. I'm not adding any other colors to it. Otherwise I'm touching these areas so that they all blend together. Okay, on to the next tree. So one over here. Let's see, that goes. Don't mess with it too much. Got all these little branches that come up. That could be the downside of adding too many branches. Now you have to add the shadows. Make sure you add your leaves on here while the blue is still wet, because you want all of these colors to touch each other. You don't see lines in your shadows, it's just shadow. They're all connected. Okay, and then we have some trees over here that we don't even see, but we see their shadow, which is coming along right there. And they've got a nice big branch, maybe a nice branch over here. Just barely touch with your brush and give it a little wiggle. Get some branches in there. More pressure with the brush, wider line, less pressure, thinner lines. And that is how you can do an entire painting with the one brush. Make sure you have plenty of paint on your brush. You don't want it to start showing too many brush strokes. You want it to look like leaves. Okay, and once your shadow starts to dry, you have to stop. And don't keep going. You don't want lines in your shadow. All right, big brush, rinsing it out, setting it aside. Little brush. We've got shadows on this bridge. I know this is called an intermediate painting. I'm going to go ahead and call it an advanced painting. I thought that the Lonely Tulip was going to be more difficult because of the lighter colors, but this one's got a lot of steps to it. So picking up that blue, starting at the base of the bridge, and now this kind of wiggles down a little bit into the water. It'll meet the other side of the bridge. Okay, leave that alone. We just want shadow under the bridge. That's it. Don't overdo it. All right, now here is going to, it seems like it's going to be a little trickier, but it's just a shadow of that arc. So we just need to do a slightly opposite arc. That's it. The only tricky part is where we're going to make sure that we have our V's meet. So touch the bottom point of each V. Like so. See? Not so tough. I'll make sure I have a little bit of a shadow coming across here because this would definitely be the darker side. And twilight here. Well, maybe not twilight, but getting on toward evening anyway. So there, I'm just darkening the lower edge of that bridge a little, just to kind of keep the shape. There. Darker pool of color over there. Okay, so now I think we've got some shadow. We've got our bridge pretty defined. I was thinking of going back in here and redefining this top edge, but now I don't want to. I think it's dark enough. We have our nice shadowy color, our purpley bluey shadows that are coming in under the bushes and along the trees. Let's see, if we wanted to, we could add a few more shadows in the leaves themselves. Maybe punch up those greens a little bit. But I think I like the way it's looking right now, the way it's feeling with all this green that we have in here is all a very light green with some purples and a little bit of yellows punched in. So I think I'm going to call this one done. That last layer of those shadows, that really brought it all together and hit home with this thing. So if you do this painting in watercolor, please show me. Post this to the Facebook group. I really, really, really want to see it. If you have any questions at all, let me know. You can ask questions in the Facebook group. You can send emails directly. We send out emails almost every week to you, so you can either reply back to those, I'll get it, or you can just send a message through Facebook to Creatively Uncorked. Either way, I'll get back to you. Thanks for painting along with this one, and we will have the acrylic version of this out shortly. Have an awesome Tuesday.